Over 200 experts have shared their secrets to a successful business. Join me, Rose Davidson, as I discover how these experts took their businesses to the next level.
Talking with the experts.
Welcome to Talking with the Experts. Talking about all things business by business owners for business owners. Episode 258 with Elzie Flenard.
Sort of a long story, but for the purposes of time, I'll try to keep it brief. So I've always known I wanted to be a business owner, and since I can remember, I've never had a normal job without having a side hustle. And so my plan as a teenager was to get married because I knew I wanted to have a family. I knew I wanted to go to college because that was important to my mom. And I knew I wanted to own my own business. And so my plan was I was going to go to college, right? That makes mom happy. That will enable me to get a job so that I could find a wife, because no self-respecting woman is going to marry a broke guy. So that checked those two boxes. And then I was going to just get a normal job until I could do my own thing. And so the plan did work. You know, I found a beautiful wife. I convinced her somehow to marry me. We had a couple of beautiful kids, went to college, did the whole thing. And here we are. It took a little bit longer than I anticipated, but the plan worked.
Talking with the experts.
Hello, and welcome to Talking with the Experts. I'm your host, Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. Talking with the Experts is about all things business by business owners for business owners. You can find it on all good podcasting streaming platforms and on YouTube. And talking about YouTube, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and ding on that bell so you get notified when new videos are uploaded. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Do you want to be inspired? Do you want to transform lives? Do you want to have a business that is, just the perfect oiled machine just for you and for your clients? My guest today is Elzie Flenard, and Elzie is a podcaster like myself, much more educated in this process, but I'm really looking forward to learning from him during this journey of 30 minutes. So Elzie, let me go and find some more about him, is a passionate podcaster who is capable enough to produce content that captivates the minds of the audience. He is a man of courage, well-versed in handling diverse facets of human life. He's an enthusiastic entrepreneur, creative podcaster, and committed business owner who absorbs uniqueness around and showcases them into the form of inspiring podcasting shows. And I'm looking forward to talking with him about his podcast and how he has developed it into something that is absolutely magnificent. Welcome, Elzie, and thank you so much for joining me today. It is such a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much for having me. I am super excited for our conversation.
Terrific. So what got you into podcasting in the first place?
Well, it's sort of a long story, but for the purposes of time, I'll try to keep it brief. So I've always known I wanted to be a business owner, and since I can remember, I've never had a normal job without having a side hustle. And so my plan as a teenager was to get married because I knew I wanted to have a family. I knew I wanted to go to college because that was important to my mom. And I knew I wanted to own my own business. And so my plan was I was going to go to college, right? That makes mom happy. That will enable me to get a job so that I could find a wife, because no self-respecting woman is going to marry a broke guy. So that checked those two boxes. And then I was going to just get a normal job until I could do my own thing. And so the plan did work. You know, I found a beautiful wife. I convinced her somehow to marry me. We had a couple of beautiful kids, went to college, did the whole thing. And here we are. It took a little bit longer than I anticipated, but the plan worked. But I was stuck. I was 10 years in And here I am, the mortgage, the family, all the stuff. And my side gig was not making enough money for me to quit. And I thought, man, what am I doing wrong? What could I be doing different to get over this hump? And my bright idea was I'll launch this internet radio station. I'll call it Enterprise Now, and I'll invite people, business owners, to be on my podcast or radio show, and I'll ask them questions and learn from them. So that's what I did. I launched the internet radio station, and my vision was to have over 100 other shows on this station as well, talking business 24/7 from all around the world. I ran across a podcast, an actual podcast, not a radio show that was repurposed as a podcast. And I absolutely fell in love with it. I hit play, and within 30 seconds, I'm getting the content I want, how I want it, in bite-sized chunks without all the fluff that is the traditional radio, right? And so I started doing some research about the podcast industry, where it was going. And I thought, I think this is going to be a thing one day. And so I shut down the station and focused on getting better as a podcaster, increasing my skill as a host and a business person, and really started approaching it like a business. And that's how I sort of got involved in the podcast industry.
Yeah, it's a little bit like me. I started just after the pandemic hit Australia. And I just saw business owners, going to the wall and not diversifying and not finding other ways to keep themselves afloat. So I thought, I don't know how I came up with the idea of a podcast. Maybe I was listening to one or something, and I thought, well, why don't I have a podcast? So I thought, well, why not? So a week later, I was up and running, and no, the cover art was terrible. And I was so green at it, but now I've got like over 20,000 downloads since, I don't know, just over 18 months, so I'm pretty happy with that. And yeah, and it just I just keep getting such quality guests such as yourself, and it's an amazing thing when other podcasters want to be on a podcast.
Yes. No, I love it. I love having conversations with other podcasters. It's probably one of the highlights of my work.
Oh yeah. So how can a business owner then grow a business with a podcast? Because I'm trying to get into the podcast production side of my business, and I want to grow my own business using my podcast. And so what is the best way to do that?
I always say the best way to grow a business is through relationships, and podcasting is probably the best way to build relationships. So being strategic about who you're having conversations with, being really intentional about taking key themes from those conversations and building on them, I think are probably the top two ways to grow your business. I think if you have a business that's podcast related, right, then that's an obvious segue, right? A lot of my early business success was, production and marketing, and now, strategy and original content. But to me, relationships, that's always going to be the number one thing, no matter what industry you're in. Building, cultivating, and fostering those relationships is going to be the number one way.
Yeah, I agree. I had I don't know, 200 and odd guests in 2021, or between 2020 and 2021. And at the end of the year, I thought, why don't I just re-invite people who were my favorite guests? So I sent out, I don't know, quite a few invitations, and I think I got an answer from nearly all of them. So they're all return guests for this year, which is really, really pleasing. So they've obviously had a really good time, and and want to share something more with my audience. So it's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the tips and tricks that podcasters can use to, I guess, get their podcasts out in front of people? Because it's all very well to upload to all these channels and everything, but it's another matter to get people to actually listen to them. So what strategies would you suggest that people use?
This might sound rudimentary, but laser focus. I think when you can talk to that one person and your message is so pointed and so direct and so and it connects, then you just multiply that. Right. So for some people, that looks like you're heavy on one channel. Maybe it's Instagram, maybe it's LinkedIn, whatever that channel is. It's easy to get into the I want to be everywhere game. But I think especially starting out, if podcasting is new and building your audience there, and again, focusing on that one person, that listener, having that what we call in the industry avatar, and then talking to that person, I think is probably the number one way to grow, as opposed to the wide net that is radio, right? It's a different approach when it's podcasting.
Okay, so how can a podcast then be used to uplift, business growth?
I think the education and the learning that you get from talking to other business owners, there are things that you can only learn from lived experience, right? And conversation is a cheat code to sort of get around that fact. And so just through having conversation, asking great questions, and really being a great listener. I know it's counterintuitive to think that as a podcaster, the number one skill is to be able to listen. But when you get really good at it, you'll listen more than you speak, because you can't learn and talk at the same time. It just doesn't work that way. And so I think being really intentional about the types of questions that you ask, and really being able to grab the lessons out of the conversations that you have.
I really like learning from other people. Heaps of my guests have taught me, little things that I thought I knew, but they've delved deeper into the whys and wherefores of why you might do something, and it's only helped me improve as a person, and it's helped me to grow my business. So I'm so grateful. My question would be around guests versus a solo podcaster. Do you do both, or do you just have guests on yours?
I toyed around with both. I like the idea of doing both for a number of reasons. When you have a guest, as the host, your sole responsibility is, number one, the listener. Number two, it is to make your guest sound, look, and be fantastic. You're somewhere third or fourth in that equation, right? And so it can sometimes be difficult for you to stand out, and for people to see you as the expert when you have guests. I mean, there are ways to do it, with the questions you ask and how you frame things. But when you have a solo cast, it's all about you, and it's all about direct value add from you to the audience.
Have you been thinking about starting a podcast? You can share your knowledge and expertise with people globally. Create original content that is completely unique from anything else out in today's market, not just in terms of style, but also perspective. And when we talk about revenue generating potential, well, let me tell you, it doesn't stop there. The time to start is now. You know that you should be doing it. However, many people are reluctant because they don't know how to produce it or what tools they need to do their podcast. Please feel free to email me at guest@talkingwiththeexperts.com today, and let's talk about how I can help you to build authority and credibility for your business through podcasting. Remember, don't wait for the opportunity, create it.
And then some of them will be solo, depending on the topic. Maybe if there's a trending question that I'm noticing people are asking, maybe I'll pop in and do a shorter solo cast and just go deeper into that subject or that topic, and then have a guest, or even I've had clients do a guest interview and then do 3 episodes breaking down the themes and the concepts that they talked about in that one guest interview. So there are ways to sort of have the best of both worlds.
Sounds really interesting, and I thought about going and doing solo episodes as well, but I find it easy to talk to people rather than talk to the camera and a microphone.
Yes.
Facebook Lives, I'm not terrified of them. I just don't like doing them. But I
Mhm.
can do this, or I can go and, be interviewed by somebody or whatever, and I'm so comfortable at doing that. But yeah, trying to get in front of doing a Facebook Live, and I start to freeze up, and then I forget my words, and then I'm doing ums and ahs and all sorts of horrible things, and it just sounds disgraceful, and I have to wipe it out and start again.
Yeah, got it.
So I don't know how I would go with the solo. Although I did twice do 2 live streams for a whole hour each, and don't think I ummed and ahed at all, but it was something I was really passionate about. So maybe
Mhm,
that's the reason why. I'm not
mhm.
really sure, but yeah.
Well, you could always do shorter episodes too, right? No, it doesn't have to be long. It could be 5 minutes. It could be 3 minutes. It could be
True.
just a short question answer type deal. So
Right? That's a good idea too. I might try that. Now, I don't know. It's really hard to talk to somebody who is already so well versed in this medium. So I'm not really sure what to. You've got all these lovely questions here on your media kit, but I don't want to ask you those because people just must ask them all the time. Tell me a little bit about your background. You did allude to, college and mum and marriage and children and all sorts of other things. But what type of education did what did you go to college for to learn? And it, you wanted to get out of and become a podcaster.
so I had a business coach and he told me, Elzie, you always answer questions by telling a story. But I find that it's easier for me to wrap context around it, right? So to answer your question, I was so in high school, I had enough credits to graduate a semester earlier. And so I took this it wasn't a job, it was like a study hallish type thing where I was basically babysitting the younger kids because they didn't have anything else to do with me. And so they were for whatever reason they were behaving that day. And so I go and I pick up an encyclopedia. And for the people who are younger than me, who don't know what that is, it's a book that has information in it, like
It's
Google,
not
but in
Google.
a book. And I pick up the letter E and I'm just casually thumbing through it and I get to electronics. So I start reading it and reading it. And by the end of the class, I decided to go into electronics. So that's what I did. I went into electronics. I got a degree in electronics technology. Then I went back and got a bachelor's degree in electronics technology. And then later got an MBA. But so I've worked as an electrical engineer. I've worked as a substation engineer. And I've also done operations and management in my career as well.
What an interesting way to pick a career.
Yes. Yeah. I always tell people I am the most strategically random person you will ever meet. Like some of the things that I do, you're like, man, how did you come up with that? And it's like, it was kind of random, but that's just the way my life goes.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, it's hilarious. It really is. I mean, and kids wouldn't even know what an encyclopedia was these days. My God.
Mhm.
We're showing our age.
Yes.
I remember when computers first came out, and there used to be an online encyclopedia. For the life of me, I can't think of the name of it, but it was all the big rage. And, it was just, it was an amazing thing. You could just, it was before even Google, I think. So I think maybe that's why they had it. But it was just such an amazing thing for someone in my generation who could actually move online and do stuff, because I loved the idea of moving into new technology. I try to be an early adopter as much as I can be.
Mhm.
I just find it so fascinating that all these new technologies keep coming out, and I really have to, play with them and see what they do, and like new programs and new apps. I love it.
Mhm. Mhm. Yep.
What about yourself? Do you play with new things, or do you wait a little bit until someone's tried it and give a review on it?
Um, I would say it depends. It depends on what it is. If it's something that is interesting, then I tend to be, more open to trying it. I don't have a ton of free time, so I have to be really intentional about, things that I spend time on. But but I'm open to new technology, as long as it's is relevant.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, yeah, it's usually something to do with my business. So, or, something that I'm in crafting, I'm doing crafting, and I've got into paint pouring and resin work. Because I've never done it before, and I'm finding it really interesting. So, something away from sitting at the computer all day long.
Hmm.
I guess, do you teach people how to podcast, or do you just have a podcast?
I do both. So a lot of my work is actually teaching. So it's a combination of teaching, coaching, and consulting, right? All sort of different aspects of the industry. Um, Teaching in my mind is more of I'm gonna tell you the how and the what. Consulting is more I'm going to provide solutions, and the coaching is I want to encourage and implore you, right? So a lot of my work is combining all of those things. Like there's some aspects of it that's training. A lot of people have never talked into a microphone before, so they don't know how far away they should be or how close they should be, right? And some people don't know about how to read body language or tone and inflection and all of that stuff. And so some of it is training, some of it is coaching. Some people have broken mindsets. They don't like the sound of their voice, or some hangups that they have that's preventing them from being the best that they can be. And some of it again is consulting, is saying, hey, given your skill set, what I hear you saying and where you want to go, here is what I see you doing. So to answer your question, it's really a combination of those three things.
Yeah, that's a good segue into me asking you, if people want to work with you, Elzie, where can they find you?
The easiest way is via email, mayor@podcasttown.net, or they can check out the website, podcasttown.net.
Well, have you got any other words of wisdom that you might want to share about either, podcasting or business or mindset or any of those great things that, some of them are buzzwords and some of them are things that are really well needed in the world at the moment?
Yeah, I think the thing that came to my mind today was never allow people to tell you who or what you are or what you can be.
I agree. Totally. That is awesome. That's awesome. I love that. Yes. It's too easy, I guess, to get stuck in other people's opinion of you, and you think, gee, someone, might give you some negative feedback, and you think, well, you don't think to yourself at the time, well, that's their opinion. It's not, not gospel. It's not truth. It doesn't have to be truth if you don't let it affect you in a way that, ruins your whole life.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I'm not, tell me a little bit more about podcast. Is it Podcast Town?
Mhm.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about that and how
Yeah.
people can
So
get involved in it if they have their own podcast.
yeah, Podcast Town is we're a full service agency. So we do everything from helping mostly businesses, B2B brands, launch their podcast brands, manage and drive leads to their business using their podcast.
Interesting. And what's the what is there a website for that?
Yep, just podcasttown.net.
Perfect. All right. So anyone wants to get involved in podcasting and they need someone to help them along, then get in touch with Elzie. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to accommodate your needs at the time. Elzie, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me today and talking with me about the podcast journey. It's been terrific.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. That time flew by.
Okay. Have a great night.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Talking with the experts.